The separation. Please tell me if I'm just freaking out over nothing or not. Wife and I have been married for 20 years and have a kid together. We're in our late 40s and the kid are in his early teens. We have a somewhat healthy physical life, about 10 times per month. We're both social, but she's way more social than me. She works in a school as a school psychologist and I'm an analyst at a financial services firm. We both make very good money. I'll cut to the chase. My wife has never been the flirty type, but she does work in a school and school system where adultery is so prevalent. The head of the school system had to write an email to the entire employee pool letting them know that they have to adhere to ethical and social standards like everyone else. This was also corroborated by some employees at a gathering I went to where a lady admitted to me that the staff was very promiscuous and that pretty much everybody had slept with everybody. I personally think she had had too much wine at that point and was exaggerating a lot. Nonetheless, I did attend a wedding about 7 years ago where 2 of the teachers were getting married. My wife was hesitant. I come due to the fact that the school types are a funny crowd. We sat at a round table, 12 of us, and saw my wife acting like a 16-year-old. Whispering to someone's ear and pointing to 2 married guys on the dance floor and asking them to dance. I normally would not have an issue with it, but my wife, as well as everyone at the table, ignored me to the point I just turned around and just watched the live band play. This freaked me out. I saw a totally different person from, I guess, the character she puts forth at home. It pissed me off so much that still, to this day, that feeling of disappointment is still with me. All good since then up until about 5 months ago. My wife started mentioning this guy's name, Richard, once, twice, thrice, and by the 4th time I jokingly said, "You've mentioned the guy 4 times already, all times from a perspective of admiration. I get it, you like the guy." She made the usual condescending BS comment and let it go. But I didn't. I sensed she was talking about the guy a little too much, so I kept my ears open. Then, another time, I heard her talking on the phone about Richard with a female coworker of her. That is when I realized it wasn't random. I checked our computer's browsing history and found out that my wife had been checking this guy on the internet for weeks. She checked where he lived, how much money he was making, whether he was married, whether he had kids, whether divorce papers had been filed, etc. I mean, she had compiled a whole dossier on this man. Turns out Richard is only working for the school system just so that he can get health insurance. But he is really a licensed realtor making a ton of money and living in a $3 million house. He's 55, but whatever. That's when my alarm bells went off. Hypergamy. My wife's dad passed away when she was 15, and I've always noticed that she does have a thing for men 10 years older than her, father figures. Throughout this process I kept mute about the guy and what I know she had checked online. All was good until this summer. We have a house in Italy and, due to the fact that she has the entire summers off, my wife and kids spend the summers in Italy. I usually join them 2 to 3 weeks and then we usually come back together. While I was in the US, I was constantly checking up on them, making sure all was good. All was good. Then, I get there and, on the way from the airport to the house, after 35 minutes of a 45-minute drive, she drops a bomb. "Oh, by the way, do you know who visited me at the house? He was just on the way to get a boat engine fixed at this place in our town and sent me a text to have coffee, but the place was closed so we talked in front of the house. Richard." I went crazy. I asked her, "How dare you? After I told you to stop talking about the guy." A million scenarios went through my head, all of them bad. She kept on reassuring me that it was all work-related, in July mind you, and that it was about Richard getting a position in my wife's department. I was like, am I being played? Please tell me you're playing me. After all the dust settled, I had to sit her down and explain to her how Richard is reading each and every one of her moves and making decisions accordingly. I had to explain to her that her dropping everything she was doing to have a coffee with him, and she had a lot to do that day, and opening the door of our husbandless house to him is going to be taken by Richard as a sign that you are receptive to his advances, whether you intend it or not. She, of course, started saying nonsensical stuff like, "I didn't think you'd want to know, it was all professional." In July, talking to her was a waste of freaking time. I only asked her to tell me what drove her to accept a coffee date from a guy I specifically told her to ignore and why it had taken her from Tuesday to Saturday of that week for her to inform me that Richard was in my house alone with my wife while my kids slept, and she couldn't answer me. Every time I ask her these 2 questions she starts crying, and lo and behold, her feelings are facts. I am now in Italy, wanting to fly back to the US like right now and file for divorce. I know neither what went on that morning and what drove her to succumb to his advances without a single ounce of control. Since they're going to be working together, I've asked her to 1, no coffee, lunch, dinner dates, and that too, she keep any and all engagements professional. Should I demand more? Am I freaking out over nothing? She knows I know a couple of things, but only because she told me. She does not know I also know because I checked the browsing history. Am I stupid or something? I don't find it normal that she would be so infatuated with this guy that she'd spend hours finding information about him on the internet. It's almost like she's fantasizing about him. If she is indeed cheating, I want to leverage the adultery to its furthest extent when I file the divorce. Got to be honest though, if she's seeing this man, I honestly have no idea where they are meeting. She never goes out, is home within 45 minutes of getting out of work. We live 27 miles away from her place of work. I think I'm going to shut up and keep my ears open. I know how to do a few things to get the information I need. But yes, unfortunately, I'll have to wear protection. I found it extremely odd that she would divulge the date. They met in the early morning in front of the house and he, from what I've heard, a third party, never entered the house. He was in the property though. He got the phone hash from the school's social worker. I saw the text, but in that text, my wife tells the social worker that he already has it. That does tie back to another text he had sent my wife in which he tells her that her department had approved her small fridge request and that he was going to get the fridge. He was in the procurement department at the time. That was back in April. Having said the above, there still is suspicious behavior. She's taking cash out of the savings account with odd frequency and always at the end of the month. She seldom answers the phone after lunchtime, which I also find odd, and tells me she is often away from her cell phone. The most incriminating part is that she's been going to work early every day, meaning she's getting to work at 7:30 even though she starts at 8:30. Like I said, I'm shutting the heck up and listen. I never show up to work 1 hour early unless I have to be at work 1 hour early. So, I don't know. I will be able to track the car's moves once the school year starts, and I am playing good boy in the hopes she hits the ground running come September. Now, the issue is that she gets the car parked usually about 5 blocks from the school by 7:30 a.m. in a neighborhood known for being difficult for finding a spot. My take is that Richard is already there and gives up the spot to her and they both drive away. The constant parking like 5 to 10 blocks away has always seemed odd to me. The best course of action for me is planting a small GPS device in her bag. I already know she leaves her phone in her desk drawer during most of the day, so tracking the phone would be a waste. What I'm doing as soon as I return to the States, I'm going to turn the house upside down when she goes out to the supermarket. We were at a get-together a while back and one of the guys there was complaining about his manager doing illegal stuff and that he was thinking of going to the SEC but that he was worried that they would track his phone. She walked him through the process of setting up a burner phone as if she were a pro. I cannot pay a PA without her finding out. Short term, I will try to do things myself by planting VAR in the car and house, keylogger in the home computer, and by checking for burner phones. Anyone know where the usual hiding spots are for burner phones? I've read somewhere else that she will always hide it wherever there's clutter. As far as the VAR in the car is concerned, where's the best hiding spot? She's always been secretive about her check stubs. Not only that, but she also seems extremely reluctant to call in sick, even when the weather invites for a work-from-home day. Odd, extremely odd. She always complains about other employees calling in sick all the time, while she may call in 2 to 3 times a year. I always tell her, just call in sick or take a personal. You have plenty of sick days left, right? To what she always says yes. But now this got me thinking. You know what? The more I inform myself of all of this, the more I realize she may have done this more than one time in the past. I mean, she started liking electronic music out of the blue. I was like, what the hell? I've always been very suspicious of some of her female coworkers. They have a chat room and they chat all the time. 2 of them are recently divorced and their chats are extremely hostile toward men. The others talk about this guy and this other loony daddy. They seem to use euphemisms to hide stuff. My wife hardly engages, but she has hinted about a meeting, which I was able to decipher to mean they were all going to an after-school year pool party. My suspicion is that they have information on each other and have some sort of divine secrets of the sisterhood thing going. They are so dumb they can't see they're going to end up living with cats and dogs. The 2 oldest in the group have not been able to have a constant relationship for more than a few months. They're so drunk in their female power BS they can't see what awaits them. Holy cow, I cannot believe I have to lower myself and do this. Endgame. Easy, shut up and listen. I hate not having any control over my family, environment, and especially my wife. I have to do something. Since I know a pie is out of the question, short term, until all other options have been exhausted, and how difficult it is going to be collecting information in such a closed and secretive group. School environment, the plan is, roughly, the following. 1. VAR in the bottom of the car's driver's seat, hidden camera behind home computer. Keylogger in home computer, monitor seat placement in car to ensure no one else sat in the passenger seat, monitor the car's moves. 2. Monitor her period and check for tampons during non-period days, plus check her underwear for signs of residual stain, or her washing her clothes as soon as she comes through the door. 3. Check the house for burner, prepaid phones or prepaid cards or any other devices used to communicate via text, voice. 4. Check payment stubs to make sure she's not taking days off to see the OM. If the above checks fail to generate any information. 4. Place a very small GPS device in her bag and monitor her movements once she's near the school. 5. Try to recruit someone in the school, maintenance guy, that can monitor her visits from the inside. If the above 2 checks fail to generate any feedback. 6. Take a few days off, rent a car and shadow her moves. If I see her exiting or entering the building with a male, get his name and place a GPS device in his car. I'll try this for a couple of months, and if nothing productive comes up but the red flags are still there, contract a pie. She keeps on inviting me to monitor her iPhone, so monitoring is a waste of time. If the PI tells me she couldn't find anything, I will desist. She basically agreed to my demands, but I don't know how committed she is to adhere to the demands. I really, for the love of God, hope she really puts up an emotional wall. The main problem is that she works in a school setting and there's literally nothing I can do to prevent the marriage from going down the drain. I really don't know how emotionally invested she is in this guy. Every time I ask her things, all I get from her is crying, defensiveness, and blame shifting. It's emotionally draining. I'm writing this from a beach overseas. Everyone is happy and having a blast, and I'm so miserable I would take the next flight back to the US and leave were I given a chance. Tried, but it had cost me $3,000. She essentially agreed she royally messed up, that her actions are the same actions a cheater would take, but keeps insisting she meant good and that the conversation was entirely about work, in July, and nothing else. I basically asked her to stop playing me, to respect me, that I am the father to her child and the one that put a roof over her head, but all I get is crying and crickets. I asked her why she wouldn't say anything about this meeting from Tuesday to set in. She doesn't know. A grown adult can't answer a simple question. Unreal. Should I confront the co-worker? I have his phone number. I did confront her. She told me she had met with the guy in the car on the way to our home from the airport. I obviously made a stink when she told me, and the argument spilled into the home and night. Want to hear the screwed up part? My 12-year-old heard us arguing and demanded we tell him what was going on. She did, and he immediately said, "Dad is right." In the process of putting the pieces of the puzzle together, I've kind of stumbled upon shady situations that, under serious scrutiny, I have no other way of explaining but her doing stuff outside the relationship. Like I said in an earlier comment, when I went to the teacher's wedding, the way I was ignored by everyone now feels to me like they knew my wife was cheating on me and no one wanted to exchange with me for fears that they may have to say something when looking at me in the eye. There was another period of time, about 7 years ago, when she was just so needy. We did it 2 times a day for like 2 months. Odd change in bonding habit. I also remember her being wet from just basic stimulation and her walking around with a fistful of tampons even when not on her period. My comment: when a woman starts this stuff, it never gets better. She looked up this guy on the internet. She chased him. Men do not cross an ocean to have a friendly chat and a cup of coffee with a woman. Ever. There's no need for anything further. No conversation or talk or boundary discussions will make a woman love her husband, and love is what prevents infidelity. Threats and such won't make a person love you. Nobody wants to divorce and start over. It's very difficult, painful, and scary to divorce and be alone again. But that's what you should do. Wishing the obvious wasn't true, hoping things can go back to the way they were, does no good. You're still stuck with an unloving, cheating wife. Do what you knew was the right thing to do all along. Divorce is a slow process. OP responds: some good news, life works in some freaking ways sometimes. I've been taking nightly walks for the past 3 days, clear my head and grab a drink at a hotel nearby. Last night I got to talk to a hot Peruvian lady. To make a long story short, she was very receptive and immediately noticed I was under some severe stress. We hit it off, like really off. We talked for about 2 hours and I think I like what I saw and heard. She now lives in Chicago, but she is willing to move to Boston if the opportunity presents itself. I guess someone's trash can be another man's treasure after all. A decision has been made. It's been a very stressful handful of days, and after a lot of thinking and soul-searching, I've realized my soon-to-be ex is unwilling to communicate with me in regard to what happened a few days ago. Unfortunately for me, she hits all the boxes in the cheater's catalog, and I just simply have neither the emotional energy to find out if she's had how man she's been with. I salute the brave who have the cojones to put themselves through such a horrid ordeal. The Peruvian woman I've been talking to also makes her own money. She's a social worker in Chicago, and actually paid for the drinks at the hotel, about $60. First time in my life a woman pays for my drinks. My soon-to-be ex drove me to drink. By the by, the girl I'm talking to has a specialty in broken homes and the effect they have on children. As soon as I told her my story, she basically said my wife was most definitely cheating on me. Probably multiple times too. My son, he said he woke up when the guy was outside talking to her. A neighbor I know told me that he did not see them going inside the house. But this is a guy I specifically asked my wife not to talk or see again because I could see the person I fell in love with, the mother of my child, slipping through my fingers, and I felt there was nothing I could do to prevent it from happening. Man, this is tearing me apart. The lady and I hit it off. I have so much in common with her. We even agreed to keep on talking after the divorce and see if this takes us anywhere. It's bluntly clear the mother of my child, the freckled-faced beauty I fell in love with in a Panama City beach, is gone. That person does not exist anymore. And one thing is for certain, I am not going to admit I ever had anything to do with her change of personality. Once these people get that first dopamine rush, they're gone. Once a cheater, always a cheater is right. The 5th time I asked her to come clean was paid with emotion, blame shifting, and stonewalling. I just knew she was pushing me away. She's probably been drilled more times than a Saudi Arabian field. I have the every feeling that she is a serial cheater. I mean, in hindsight, the clues were everywhere. Carrying tampons during non-cycle days, going into work early, her inviting me to check her phone as much as I want, the nappy-headedness, the complaining about the lack of my social life, during COVID mind you, her wanting to hang out more and more with her friends alone, etc. OM is married, got wind of her knowing when I read an exchange between my wife and another female friend in which they were discussing how beautiful she is and what good taste in clothes she has. These two hyenas are probably jealous of her. Update: DD are still being drafted, but my wife has been informed that I've commenced amicable divorce proceedings. She threw the biggest fit I've ever seen her throw. Like literally lost it. My impression is that the act of us walking into our home, in her mind, was my way of saying to her that I still want to continue as is, and me mentioning the coming divorce hit her like a ton of bricks. She was crying hysterically for an hour, going as far as calling family members on both sides to let them know how I was stabbing her in the back. All the while she was putting on a show, I stood there stone-faced. She even went as far as saying she was willing to go into the kitchen, grab a knife, and stab herself to show me that I'm only yours. She really needs help, not from me though. For her, this misery is happening in slow motion, and now she knows how I've been feeling for the past couple of weeks. When she came to, we had a conversation about what had taken place, and the revelations were a greatest hits of cheater literature. She said Richard was only there a couple of times to talk about work and that he only kisses her on the cheek one night. Moreover, she claims that the men our neighbor saw leaving the house after midnight were handymen that were there to fix a pipe that was making so much noise they couldn't sleep at night, according to her, due to the house being uninhabited since July of 2021. She also walked back on the no text deleting and now claims she did delete the text she thought I was going to misinterpret. So now I'm not dealing with a lying animal, I'm dealing with a lying and condescending animal. Needless to say, I have no doubt they did it and that they still have a physical and emotional affair. Oh, and she also let me see the work emails. Lots missing of course, but the impression I get is that her school system is like a cult. They behave like a pack of wolves and they truly genuinely believe they are like a second family. They go out together, have BBQ parties together, text each other till late, etc. These people literally live two distinct lives, and some of the participants have issues when participants in one of the lives delves in the other life. I read somewhere that in order for a friendship to make it to a full-blown EA, it has to meet 6 out of 10 parameters. Teachers, school psychologists, and other administrative staff are always at 5 out of 10, so it comes as no surprise that the school departments are riddled with adultery. I mean, I saw emails from a group of married women talking about how they sometimes invite certain males to their only girls get-togethers, which my wife piled on about by the way. These animals feel safe in the little exclusive world they've created. If she gives me a hard time with the divorce, I'm spilling the beans. The reason for that is that this has been a long, arduous process that started with her distancing herself and not engaging in any bonding for months. Believe me, this didn't fall out of the sky. Me finding the texts between her and Richard is what opened my eyes and ears to what she was doing. Why I keep me in this? Because of two things. One, she contacted a bunch of our relatives to let them know how much of a hole I am for dumping her, and two, I find it extremely irritating that she thinks I am naive enough to believe her garbage excuses, and her attitude indirectly hinting that I signed up for an open marriage because I'm a lesser male. Screw that crap. I really, for the life of me, cannot understand how she thought she was going to get away with it. It's a small Italian village, where any and all outsiders are taken account of immediately and people warned. She was either careless or trying to send me a message. Her school has a very outsider culture. My wife gets queasy when I ask her things about her workplace. She'll say things like, I don't like to talk about work after work, or please don't criticize such and such. She took working from home due to lockdown real hard. Like she started questioning out marriage and how unsocial I was during lockdown. And how she wished she had single. This comment was the one that woke me up to her delusion. And like I said in a previous post, I went to a wedding where 2 of her colleagues were getting married, and my wife ignored me the whole night and had nothing but condescending remarks toward me. She was behaving completely different from the wife I knew at home. Almost like a teenager with an attitude. Now I don't even attend her school's get-togethers. She goes alone if it's a lunch or a breakfast and stays home if it's an after-dark event. Want to know what the old Italian man told me when I mentioned to him that my wife alleged that the men he saw going out of the house late at night were handymen? Get the crap out of here. Let's be real, Richard went there to screw my wife. Plain and simple. Initially, like she alleges, maybe she was thinking it was going to be a little flirting, a little company, a kiss here, a little let's escape to another town and have a blast. But I am 1000% sure Richard showed up to screw up. And, just as most cheaters do, she succumbed. Bonding-wise, we were essentially doing it once a month for many years with ramp-ups during times I believe she was engaging in a PA with her ex. Then, back to once a month again for like 2 years. And now, since January of this year, we've been at it pretty much 3 to 4 times per week. And, lo and behold, the first work email I saw about going out for coffee is from January of this year. This latest ramp-up is nothing compared to when I believe she was seeing her ex, I now suspect from September of 2016 to March 2020. The lockdown had a huge impact on my STBX, but not after a few months of cabin fever. She had huge blowouts with me after only a few days after we all were told to work from home due to the epidemic. Now, to me, it's clear she was suffering from a case of dopamine withdrawal. I mean, you'd think that doing it once or twice a day for 6 months straight would calm her down, but at the time, she was strangely easily irritable and distant in equal measure. Not the sort of attitude one has when you have an extra active physical life. In hindsight, and after reading through multiple of the threads here, she was doing exactly what every cheater does, at different times during the year in relationship. Washing her undies as soon as she came through the door. Check. Changing her phone PIN. Check. Turning off the Find Me app in her iPhone. Check. Distancing herself from me when in the presence of people from her school. Check. Not wearing her wedding ring. Check. Not sending me any affectionate chats when away from me. Check. Going to the supermarket and disappearing for 2 hours. Check. Too many to count. I handed her the divorce papers a few days ago. She took it rather well. Her lawyer is still going through the docs, but it seems as though we're in agreement on 98% of the stuff. She asked me if there was any chance of reconciliation and I said, none at all. She said, I'm sorry and I guess this is how this story is supposed to end. As far as me learning more about the affair when I got back. Yes, I found out she had a credit card I did not know about, which she probably paid with the $80 she withdrew from our bank account every month. I also found out she had multiple outings with him prior to going on vacation. She had at least one sick day deducted from her check stub every other week, which was the reason she always kept her sick day balance private and was always strangely unwilling to take a sick day even on days when she was sick, and still pondering on whether I should scan her old iPhone or not. That phones have to have a treasure trove of information, and I am in possession of it, meaning information on her previous OM, which I highly suspect she had, and also information on the genesis of her relationship with Richard. Even with a threat of divorce on the table, STBX was only willing to tell me that she did indeed meet with him but that he only kissed her on the cheek. I'm dealing with someone who, if I go your route, is going to decontextualize and delay the information as much as she can. I'm dealing with an animal that is 1, extremely stubborn and set in her ways, 2, always passive-aggressive for literally everything, and 3, a compulsive liar at this point. I'm getting DNA tests done this week because I don't trust her anymore. She is having lawyer so soon. Well, I did tell her last Wednesday that my intention was to file for divorce. She had almost a week to lawyer up. If the threat of divorce only got her to kind of open up a little bit, enough to make me believe that she did not cheat, why should I believe me continuing to demand she tell me the whole truth is going to get her to change her mind? I don't want to give her any control. I asked her to tell me everything or else and she failed. She was literally warned of what was going to happen. Funny thing is I need no gossip, I can connect the dots myself. So much so that I've been able to find out things merely by sheer deduction. Like I know for a fact that she once saw this guy after going hiking with a bunch of female friends. How do I know? Because I happened to play soccer with one of the guys and I found out at the time that all the wives were back home while mine was hanging out with a coworker. I didn't make anything out of the meeting at the time, but, in hindsight, I should have seen it for what it was. I checked the texts and she never said anything about her meeting other people. I suspected that about 7 years ago she cheated on me with her ex-boyfriend. Back then, I had no idea about ERP or the circumstances preceding or during the events. In hindsight, everything checks out to her having had an affair with the guy. I kind of pushed it aside and forgot about it, but this latest stunt was too much. I made the decision as soon as she told me in the car that Richard had come to pay her a visit. Richard is single and has moved on, as I expected. From what I heard, my ex took it pretty bad. It's odd and humiliating at the same time seeing the mother of your child and wife being so infatuated with someone else. The dude is still married, as far as I know. My bad. The one who is indeed single is her ex-boyfriend, who seems to have dumped her, so far, twice. This is the cheating I suspect took place about 7 years ago. I'll refer to the guy as Jack. I wonder if Richard's wife found out. Should I contact her? Update, contacted her last night about custodial innuendo. The animal still insists she doesn't and will not ever have any feelings for Richard. Why, and what, on God's good earth, would possess a person to so blatantly lie and keep lying even when she's been found out? What is triggered in them to completely abandon any and all semblance of reality? I mean, I literally saw it in front of my very eyes. Also, a friend of mine also corroborated that some of the females she was going out hiking with suspected something was going on because one of the girls saw them making out in a nearby park prior to going hiking. Apparently, the husband told her to mind her own crap. So much for male alliance. My comment, when you suspect an affair 7 years ago, you should have realized there was a problem already. However, it's never too late to walk away, start running.